Welcome to the Business Blueprint, where entrepreneurs and business leaders learn how to work smarter, scale faster, and build better.
Well, welcome to episode number 1 of the Business Blueprint, the show where entrepreneurs, business leaders learn how to work smarter, scale faster, and ultimately build more successful companies. I am your host, Joe Sandin. Alongside me is my co-host and trusted marketing wizard, Kraby. And today we're going to be talking about a topic that has literally taken the world by storm in the last couple of years. But before we do that, since this is our very first episode of the Business Blueprint, it seems only fitting that, Clay, we would introduce ourselves and give a little bit of background. So again, my name is Joe Sandin. I'm the president and CEO of OnSharp, a technology consulting business located here in Fargo. We build custom software solutions and specifically portals for businesses in the areas of client portals, dealer portals, and just systems that connect businesses to their customers. We've been doing it for about 25 years. This is actually our 25th anniversary. I say to people all the time, even after 25 years in business, I still feel like a startup. And I think that just goes to show how much business can change over the years. Personally, I am married with 4 children. My wife is also an entrepreneur. She runs a law firm called Sandin Law here in Fargo. And we live in South Fargo with our family. I just got back from a vacation in Cabo San Lucas. So I'm literally going to be sitting on my hands for half the episode, trying to keep my hands warm. I can see that fall has obviously set in here in Fargo. And then I'd like to introduce Clay. Clay, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Kraby. You did the family side of things, so I'll do that too. I am married. I've got 3 great kids. We live out in Warren, Minnesota. And I have been the marketing director here at OnSharp. I think I'm going into year 4 here, or have, about
Sounds
knee deep
right.
into year 4. And it's been a good time. And we're just trying to stay on top of all the technology changes that we have. And every once in a while, Joe comes in and has a new idea. So we got to shift and bob and weave a little
Only
bit.
every once in a while.
That's
like
right. Every couple of weeks,
Right.
we change gears. So.
Oh, funny. Well, thanks, Clay. So let's talk about our goals for the show, Clay. Let's make sure our listeners understand kind of, what's the point of the Business Blueprint. So really the goal is pretty simple. I've been in business I started OnSharp when I was in college. I was actually a sophomore in college. And at the time, tech was in a little bit of a slowdown, and I was kind of getting around the horn of everyone was applying for jobs. And I had started OnSharp with a buddy of mine. And I just knew that I didn't want to go get a job. I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I wanted to kind of see where this career could take me. So I just, when you're young, I think entrepreneurship's a little bit easier. I had nothing to lose. I had no kids. I had no wife. I had no house payments. It was pretty easy. I have a lot of respect for people who can leave a stable job after 10, 15, 20 years and become an entrepreneur. But over the course of that journey, obviously since I started when I was 20, I've gone through so many experiences, both good and bad, and I've learned a lot of things about business. I've had really great mentorship. My father-in-law is a business owner here in town, Mike Bollinger, and I've had the privilege of being around him for a very long time and learning things. And so really the point of this show is just to help other businesses kind of as they're going through that journey, whether you're just starting or you're 5 years in or 10 years in. I just think we have a lot of practical experience that we've been through, and you too, Clay, on the marketing side, that we just want to be able to share with people. So our goal for the show is just to help businesses, entrepreneurs, business leaders, and just even if you're just any part in an organization, just help understand how you can contribute to your company, have good strategy, keep things simple. A lot of times I talk about how we can overcomplicate business and just make things harder than they need to be. So really try to simplify our companies and then ultimately scale. I think if you have a good strategy, you have the right people, and you're all rowing in the right direction, I think you can really build a business very quickly. So getting to our topic for today, excuse me, we're going to talk about, one of the biggest shifts that we've obviously seen, and I've definitely seen in the last 25 years, and that's artificial intelligence. It just felt fitting, me being a software guy and a techie guy. Let's crack the seal, kind of in this first show, and let's talk about AI. So, there's a lot of fear and skepticism and anxiety around AI. I talk to a lot of people, and they're either super excited and gung-ho and they're diving in with both feet, or they seem very apprehensive. And so, so last night I was kind of thinking through that, like, why are people so apprehensive? And I kind of have three things I want to talk about. So number one is really is the speed of change. How do you how do you plan in a business when you feel like the ground underneath you is shifting constantly and all the time, right? It's very difficult, when new tools are coming out literally every day and every week, that we all need to implement into our businesses. It can be very difficult. Number two is it's redefining, what human work looks like. When AI can write the code, generate marketing campaigns, analyze data, and geez, even make some of the decisions for us, really every job function kind of needs to be re-examined, right? So the uncertainty around that, it's really creating an identity crisis and causing a lot of organizations and their people to kind of, ask themselves, what's my purpose? And so it's creating a very emotional shift. And then lastly is there's a kind of a rebalancing of power and kind of a power imbalance. You see all these AI companies that are really building up these tech stacks, and we all depend on these things, these data models, these tools, and it's really putting businesses in a vulnerable position. You need these tools, and you need to move quicker than your competition if you want to remain competitive. So Clay, I'm just gonna kind of kick it over to you with a first question here. So it seems like either, like I said earlier, companies are either diving in head first and they're loving it, or they seem a little apprehensive and fearful. So why do you think some companies thrive while other ones maybe kind of fade away or die or just have a hard time with it?
Yeah, and I think we all need to keep in mind that this is still really new. And so I think
absolutely.
some companies feel like, oh man, I'm already behind. I wasn't an early adopter. ChatGPT launched publicly in November of 2021, 22. I mean, I think it might even be in 22. So this is still really recent. I mean, You remember those early efforts where it really was just a toy, and now it's really becoming more of an integral tool into people's operations. So don't feel too bad to be a little bit scared, a little bit not understanding how you're going to actually utilize AI, because it is very new and people are figuring out. And whenever there's these big technological shifts, companies kind of get off balance. And you can think of a number of things, particularly in the internet age. You've got the example of like a Blockbuster who doesn't understand the shift to streaming, and they go under because there's not enough foresight there. They're not maybe willing to make some of those shifts to adapt as they need. And I think the level of AI is such a disruptor. It doesn't really have a great comparison until you look back to things like electricity. This is not just a new product. This is a whole new capability.
Yep.
And so companies find themselves in a position where they need to understand, okay, how do we shift and adapt and adopt this capability? And there's some that all they can think of is like, oh, well, we'll just replace the steam engine with an electrical, power station, and then we'll just keep doing business as usual. And they might get a little bit of a bump out of that. Maybe there is that little bit of fear and trepidation there. They're willing to take those risks. And then there's other smaller, more agile companies that say, no, we're going to reevaluate everything we do because of this new capability. And then they leaps and bounds over what was maybe before that really powerful competitors.
Yep.
Smaller guys can come up and really make inroads there very quickly, develop whole new sectors that just didn't exist. So I think that's what we're seeing with AI is it's such a new thing. It's such a huge change that really doesn't give them a lot of runway to understand how are we going to do? What are we going to do differently? So they need to take a step back and really try to see it as an opportunity as much as they can.
Yeah, and AI is obviously a technical piece, and a lot of people don't understand how it works. So I think as a business owner, if you're not a technical business owner, it can be very, very difficult to understand what does this all mean and what do I need to make of it? So you either need to have the right tech person on your team to lead that, or I think you need to find some outside help and consult with somebody who can maybe guide your organization and help you work through it. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to shift into what I think is kind of a good next topic, which is, obviously businesses need to come up with policy and understand how to kind of shape the AI usage of their employees. So we're going to dive into that. You're listening to The Business Blueprint.
Well, welcome back to The Business Blueprint. My name is Clay, here with Joe Sandin, founder, president of OnSharp here in Fargo. And our goal with the show is just to help entrepreneurs and business leaders learn how to work smarter, scale faster, and ultimately build stronger, more successful companies. And in that vein, we're talking about what everybody else is talking about in the world, which is AI. But the hope is that we can offer some really practical insights for businesses, for those in business leadership positions, or those that are just entrepreneurial minded, on how they can think through and then practically apply and start utilizing AI in a way that's really going to help their businesses move forward. So we want to talk about AI adoption. And again, we said in the last segment, it's still fairly early in the game. You're not too late. You can still be an early adopter, but how to do that is the question that a lot of business leaders have. They don't know where to start, and we want to lay a good foundations there. So just want to talk with you a little bit about that. How should business leaders approach AI adoption for the first time? If they haven't done anything yet, how should they be thinking about this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there are a lot of businesses that are still kind of ignoring AI, and maybe they have that opinion that AI is going to not pan out and it's going to go away. And there is going to be certain AI components and tools that maybe aren't going to, provide to be fruitful and whatnot. But I think the key is experimentation. I think you need to build a culture in your company that allows your employees to kind of get in and get their hands dirty. There's a lot of different AI tools. It's not just ChatGPT. It's not just about writing emails and writing blog posts and content. There's video, there's workflow stuff. There's so many different components to AI, and it just transcends all areas of the company. So I think as a business, you just need to foster a culture of curiosity and experimentation. Obviously, as a business, you need to protect your confidential information. So I always tell companies you have to have policies and procedures in place just to make sure that employees understand when they're using those tools, what the do's and the don'ts are as far as what you want to put in those tools for information. But, when something is changing as fast as it is, like AI, the only way you figure out how it applies to your business is to experiment. And so you need to give your employees some time and some opportunity and some liberty to use their own creativity and see how it applies to their job. And then because like I, as a leader of OnSharp, I can't just come down and teach everyone everything there is to know about AI. I can't keep up with it myself. Yeah. So I need us to be more like an army of people out there with a lot of curiosity and a lot of experimentation and just figure out how it's going to apply to our business.
Right, because you're not going to go to the library and get a book on the latest AI stuff. This stuff is moving
moving you
fast.
Could, but it'll last you 30 days.
Right, it's very outdated the second it gets printed. It's all moving fast, and there is a ton of it. And some of it's hype. Some of it's hype where, everybody's saying, oh, it's AI powered and AI fueled and AI driven and all this stuff. And sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. But there are some really great tools out there that businesses should be aware of. And like you said, you need them to experiment. So as a business owner, I think you have a unique perspective on this. We did a poll on LinkedIn not too long ago where we asked people, at your job, are you encouraged to use AI? Are there limited tools available? Is it banned? There was a lot of people where they're just not allowed to use it. So you have a business, you encourage us to be experimenting. So what does it look like to create that company culture that welcomes, AI, that isn't afraid of it and is willing to try things out?
Yeah, so again, it comes from the top down. I mean, as a leadership team, you have to make sure that your employees know that they're encouraged to use it. Again, every business has a different security risk profile. So there are going to be some companies that are going to put really tight restrictions on what they allow people to sign up for and whatnot, and that's fine. It's totally cool. You got to have the policy in place to properly tee people up to use the tools. But in general, you've got to let people test, and then you need to get feedback. So whether it's a weekly, quarterly, monthly meeting, whether you need to form a committee, I think people need to share what they're learning. We can't all learn in silos and just apply it to our own business, because a lot of the tools that maybe I uncover could be applicable to you in marketing, could be applicable to somebody in operations. So I think we need to create a system in our business where we can be coming together and sharing what we're learning and understanding. And it changes a lot. There's tools that I've used that maybe I thought weren't very good when I first used them, and then I came back to it 3 months, 4 months, 6 months later, and the tool has matured a lot. And so even first impressions can be misguided. You can't just write off an AI tool that you've looked at once. You got to continually stay on top and come back and see how they've evolved.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You need to basically be checking in every couple of weeks on these tools because they're dramatically different. We all remember the very first, AI video of the nightmare fuel of Will Smith eating spaghetti.
Yeah, some of the early video stuff was terrible.
Awful stuff, and how far that's come in a very short amount of time. And that's true of all. It's true of the content, the writing ability of ChatGPT. That's true of the image generation. It's true of all those things. So you want to experiment and then go back and revisit those things. And it seems like a feedback loop is necessary too.
Yep.
Because like you mentioned, silos. One team might learn something really cool, but if the company's not talking, they're missing out on the benefits of that.
Yeah, I think a really good example, excuse me, from OnSharp's perspective is we use a software development tool called Cursor, which allows us to write code, and it allows us to use AI tools to help us write that code. And when we first started playing with it, 9 months ago, maybe, it wasn't very good. It made a lot of mistakes, and it was painful, and it wasn't necessarily up to snuff. And then we came back to it in the last 3 months, and it's just amazing how much better it has gotten. It's leveraging the different LLMs, so as they get better, it gets better. And so the speed of progress in AI is just insane how fast things are moving and how much better things are getting every day. So we've just learned that you can't totally write off a tool just because you looked at it once. You gotta keep learning and keep moving.
Yeah.
And it takes time. But another thing I tell people too is don't let that overwhelm you. Like, you can't spend every day, all day researching AI. You have to, at some point you got to do work, right? So I like to say what Dharmesh Shah from HubSpot says. I say this all the time, dream big, but don't be, you can iterate small. Maybe you just look at every quarter and you say, we're going to implement maybe 1 or 2, AI improvements in our business, and we're good with that. But at least you're making progress and you're not ignoring it.
Right. You want to make these small steps as you can.
Yeah.
Save 10% of the time there, 10% of the time there. There's lots of opportunity there, but the reason that some businesses aren't adopting, at least not very quickly, is there's risks there. There's challenges that come with that. Any technological change, there's going to be a trade-off. So how do you mitigate some of that? How do you balance innovation and risk management when it comes to AI, particularly in business?
Well, I think it's like anything. You have to look at the time and the money investment in using it. And, if you're doing something that's internal to the business, there's probably a little bit less risk because you're not going to maybe expose something to the customer or have something that just falls flat on its face and damages your reputation. But yeah, when you're putting things out there that are customer facing, like a new chat bot, or I'm changing something in my product or my service that really becomes AI dependent, you just got to test it well. You have to, use it internally for a while. Have a pilot group of people that are going to use it. Again, take your time. Like, even though I stress like speed of learning these things, everyone can move at their own pace as far as actual implementation. And there's going to be some AI tools and technologies that are just not necessarily applicable to every business, and that's fine. You got to pick what's right for you.
Yeah, and it's definitely in a trust but verify. I don't even trust it. Don't trust it and verify it with the outputs. You just think of AI as the greatest intern you could ever have. Capabilities through the roof, judgment maybe not so much. So you want to look over these things before you release them out in the world, test them and try them out. So if there is a business that is not really dabbled, maybe they've got a ChatGPT account, that's about it. If you had a blank slate company that is interested in innovating in this direction, what are some early ways that they could introduce some AI tools into their company?
Well, one of the first things we did was we got a ChatGPT Teams account. So again, wanting to have control over everyone's usage and make sure we had data privacy, we set up a centralized ChatGPT Teams account, gave everyone who needed it access to it. It's a really great way to get started. And what's interesting, ChatGPT was mostly just textual content when it started, and now it's moved to imagery, and you can build agents, and it's become very, very powerful. So it is a good first step example for how to do that. But again, you just got to let your people explore. You got to look at what fits, into your business model. There's going to be some tools that you're interested in, others that you're not. But each department, sales and marketing's got to look at how it applies to them. Operations, finance. AI has its own implications in every area of the business. So you just got to kind of dissect that.
Yeah. So, to kind of sum up what we've been talking about here, start small. Businesses need to stay curious, be willing to innovate, and really just kind of empower their teams to experiment. Yes, do it in a safe way, put some guardrails in place. But the moral of the story is that the businesses that learn the fastest are the ones that are going to succeed in the next decade.
Absolutely.
You've got to be learning how to utilize this because it's
Yep.
not going anywhere. Well, you're listening to the Business Blueprint. When we come back, we're going to talk about the impact that AI can have on your sales and your marketing teams.
All right, welcome back to the Business Blueprint. Today we're talking about everyone's favorite topic over the last couple of years, which is AI. You know, how businesses can harness the power of AI and guard against some of the disruption that it's bringing to the table. A huge area of challenge and opportunity in the world of AI is in sales and marketing. This is one of my favorite areas to experiment and dabble with AI. And obviously, Clay, you leading our marketing team, that you're very privy to what's going on in the world of AI when it comes to marketing. So we're going to talk sales and marketing a little bit and give people a little bit of advice here. So I want to start with a pretty broad question, Clay. So let's just generally talk. How is AI causing headaches for you guys in the world of sales and marketing right now?
Yeah, and it is, and it's really exciting. There's a lot of marketers that talk about they're more excited than they've been in years just because of all the new tools that are available. But there's a lot of headaches going on. First and foremost, there's just a flood of content. There is a bunch of noise. Before, if back, even just a few years ago, it was all content marketing was the main game, and you need to have a content writer, and you need to write blog posts, you need to put out, emails, and that all had to be done by a human person. And so what happened when these AI tools come along, that can be automated, that can be generated by something like ChatGPT, and so just the amount of noise out there has increased 100-fold. And so now what happens is you've got your customer base, your prospects, your audience is very fatigued. They're very skeptical. They understand that a lot of stuff is just being kind of cranked out and isn't really real and genuine. So that's a difficulty. And the other element too, a real specific one, is with the rise of a ChatGPT, now your potential customer isn't, first stop on your website and poking around your content. They're in this stream of a conversation that you are completely outside of, back and forth with an AI agent, whether that be like a ChatGPT or a Claude or a Gemini, and they might not come to your website until they're ready to buy, which is a great thing. But now you've got no stats at all in your analytics on your website as your traffic's going way down. Now, it's a good thing that the traffic that does come in is super qualified. They might be ready to buy, but there's a lot of visibility issues. There's a lot of challenges where before we were so reliant on search engines and SEO and organic reach.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's almost like ChatGPT has become the new Google. I mean, people almost think to go there first to ask a question, to do their research. So like you said, people are going to learn about you.
Yep.
And the content is obviously coming from what you've put out on the internet,
right,
your website and whatnot. But like, you don't really have the opportunity. You're not in the same amount of control as you used to be when people were spending most of their time just searching, finding you, and then hitting your website.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of those conversations they're happening, and it's gobbling up all that content out there. So the mistake that marketing teams can make is go, oh, look at all the traffic's down. Traffic's down the website, traffic down the blog. It's not worth our time to do those things. Well, that's actually the wrong move. You just need to get comfortable with the idea that you're going to have lower traffic to these pages, and you need more pages probably than ever, because you're just feeding this monster that is gobbling these things up, and it's really just giving it ammunition for these conversations. So whether that's comparison pages of you versus other similar products or services, or going to deep dive into your pricing model, whatever that might be, you still need to be producing that content. You just need to be okay with the fact that it's getting consumed elsewhere, off-site, off-brand, branded properties,
Sure.
And then that traffic. But when that traffic does come, they're starting to get stats on these things, and it's maybe as much as 13 times more valuable when they do come to your site than if they just came in from a Google search. So it's ultimately a good thing.
Yeah, and I see everyone's trying to optimize for AI search, right? Yep. And no one really knows what the algorithm is.
Yep.
So everyone's guessing at this point. So it's kind of the Wild West out there with that. So one thing I want to touch on is, it's, again, like you've said, it's not like we need to stop producing content. It's caused problems because there's so much garbage content. People are lazy. I mean, it's just humans are lazy. So when you suddenly have this tool that can you can give it a one-liner and it can write a blog post for you, the lazy person says, oh, I'm just going to put it out there. Good enough, right? So you end up with all this junky content. So talk about authenticity to me. So then to me, it seems like the play would be, don't worry about volume, but worry about really writing true, authentic content. You know, when I use ChatGPT, for example, I use it as like an ideation session. Like I've got someone that I can talk with, but then I ultimately still try to write my own authentic content. What would you have to say about that?
I would agree 100%. Like, I think the best use of something, and again, ChatGPT is the norm. Is 90% of marketers are using ChatGPT. The other one, the next highest is like Gemini at 50. So when we're pretty much using ChatGPT in place of AI in terms of terminology, but using it as a research assistant, using it for marketing research, helping it to, feeding, you could take all of this customer feedback, feed that into it and say, hey, find some common pain points, find some common places that we're getting a lot of accolades as a brand, and then you work that into your marketing copy. I don't think anyone should be of the mindset, I'm going to, do my input, I'm going to take whatever comes out, I'm going to slap it on the website, I'm going to publish it. Right. I think that's really going to be evident of the companies that are doing that. They might be able to scale up and get a lot of stuff out there out the gate really quickly, but that's going to stall out pretty quick because you know when you're reading an email or marketing copy and it's in today's fast-paced business environment, no one says that ever. And so you don't want to skip out on the editing process. You don't want to outsource your creativity. You should be looking at AI to do all the things you don't want to do so that you have time to be creative. There's all this stuff that now AI is, it's writing our symphonies and it's doing painting. So we have more time to do the laundry and mow the lawn. Like we are doing this backwards. And we don't want to do that in the marketing world. We want to use AI to do a lot of the data stuff, a lot of the workflow, the automation element of things, so that we can sit and be marketers and be creative and do the fun stuff. There's no reason to outsource the fun part to a robot. Keep that for yourself.
Yeah. So, in our experience working together, I think research has been a big piece of AI that's really helped us on the sales and marketing side. Do you want to do me a favor and just talk about how you're using AI to do some of that sales and marketing research on the customer, and then go a little bit into the workflow stuff and maybe give some examples of how we're actually using AI agents and workflows to automate some of that work.
Yeah, the research element can be tremendous. So take the example of maybe competitive research. Depending on how you formulate these prompts, what you put in, you can get some really helpful information back. So you can say, hey, I want to know what other offerings are out there that would appeal to this industry, this type of buyer that solves these problems, and it can come give you this list of people, these other companies to check out. It can take you deep dive. The more you ask it, just treat it like a conversation. Again, it's like a really strong research assistant. And the more you go in there, you can start building profiles, not only of competitors, you can build your ideal customer profile. And the way to do this well is not to just assume that, again, a ChatGPT or whatever else you're using is just going to give you good data. It's always going to sound like it knows what it's talking about. It's very confident. Yeah. You want to feed it real information. Feed it, who your ideal customer is, and then ask it for pain points that would appeal to them. Feed it your brand standards and ask it to help you, iron out some of the language now that you want to take this standard piece of content that you have, and now you want it to appeal to someone in manufacturing or whatever else. So there's lots of ways that you can do that from a research and a personalization standpoint. And then also when you're talking not just in large scale, whether that be competitive or customer profile or anything like that, if you want to get down onto the individual level, how are we going to reach these folks? You can start working AI into your automation, into your workflow. So if you use something like a HubSpot, there's going to be a ton of baked-in tools for that, to where now instead of doing these big batch and blast emails or something like that, which nobody reads those things, right. You can actually start taking that data in, and without you having as a human person to sit and go, oh, well, this is Alan and he's from Phoenix, and it can take all that into account and then work that into the email. So again, it really comes down to the amount and the quality of the information, the data that you put into it, and then the task that you're giving it to how well that's going to help you on the marketing team. Yep.
So one more question I want to ask you before we go to break. So I think a lot of people listening are small business owners or are leaders in a small business. And I think as a small business, you're always trying to figure out how to get a leg up on the larger business. So what I want to ask you is, how can AI help small teams compete with larger marketing departments?
That's a good question, because if you think in the past, if you're the little guy and you're thinking of the big teams, what was the difference? Well, they had specialists. they had a content specialist, and they had somebody that was just on social media, and they had someone just for video, and they said, and that was a huge advantage up until AI. And now we really all have to be generalists because the tools are the specialists. You don't have to be a world-class video editor and a world-class designer and a world-class writer. You need to have a general knowledge in these areas so that you can utilize these tools. So if you're a small company or you're maybe a one-man marketing team or just a few people, you can really increase your level of output in a huge way by utilizing some of these tools and just making sure that you're on the top of your game. You understand, you've got the basics down with your branding and everything else. And then with that general marketing knowledge, use these tools to specialize, and it really levels the playing field where you can compete with a lot of bigger companies.
Yeah, I think it's at a very exciting time to be a small business where you can get a leg up. So we're going to go to break. When we come back, we're going to talk about AI and the future of customer service. You are listening to The Business Blueprint.
Well, welcome back to The Business Blueprint. We've been having a conversation about how AI is impacting the business world and really all facets of business, whether that be, that's the HR, the accounting, the marketing, really every area of your business has been touched by the power of AI, or at least there's opportunity for it to be impacted by AI. And we want to talk about that in the world of customer service. And it's not just, these bad chatbots that we've had the last few years. It's really helping companies provide better customer experiences. It can predict what customers need, solve problems faster. It can use a lot of that data to personalize interactions. So there's a lot of good there as well. But the big question is, so where does the human still fit in to the customer experience problems? You don't want to outsource all of that to impersonalized processes. So when people hear about AI and customer service, a lot of times they think of these little chat bots in the bottom right of the screen that they click, and then you immediately type in human. I want a human, and it gets you where you want to be. But it's a lot bigger than that. There's more opportunity there. So what are some ways that AI is actually transforming in a positive way how companies serve their customers?
Yes, it's really about, the customer wants to solve their issue or get what they're after as efficiently and quickly as possible. And so I think in the old days, before AI was around, it took us longer as a business to do that for a client. We had to look up a bunch of stuff. We had to, just kind of like cobble our way through it. And it was hard. And then we were only there for them, 8 to 5 or whatever our business hours are. So, I think that the benefit is in any business, like use technology and use AI to give your customer 24/7 the answers to their questions and the services that they need. If you can automate stuff and take the human out of the equation, that's what we should be doing. And then let the people do the things that people need to get in the middle of. So if 80% of our customer support issues can be handled by a simple chatbot with logic that can understand how to break down a user's issues and get them to the answer, that's great, because then the customer is in and out quickly and they can do it on their own time. And, there's going to be those situations where AI can't, get you the answer or something kind of falls out of bounds. And then that's where the human steps in. So I'm a big proponent in general of looking at, I just think every business has to take their processes. There's a lot of different components of customer service. And you just need to look at them through a new lens now, knowing that you have all these AI tools at your disposal, and just don't be afraid to kind of reinvent what the process is and figure out, okay, how do we create the most beautiful, ultimate customer? Start from the customer outward and work your way back. I think the mistake a lot of companies make is they just think about their internal process first. And then if you looked at it from the customer's lens, they would say, oh, there's still a lot to be desired here. So start from the customer experience and work your way backwards.
Yeah, and at OnSharp, when we're building like custom client portals and things like that, our goal in that is not simply to just offhand things and turn it all over to AI. It's really freeing up your customer service team to handle the interactions that actually matter. If there's something easy, something that the customer wants to self-serve on, let them do that. Let them be on their way quickly. And now the bandwidth of your team is increased dramatically.
You can get so much more done with the same team. And when you think about scaling a business, one of the biggest things you have to scale is people, right? So if you're looking to grow your business and you can find ways to use AI versus having to add additional headcount, and then you have that level of consistency. The AI is going to operate the way it needs to, and you take the human element out. I love taking the human element out of the equation when it doesn't need to be there.
Yeah.
When you've defined the way something should work, People make mistakes. So like, let's take the people out of those components and then let them be in those customer experiences where they can actually make a difference and really provide that next level of service.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because a lot of people hear AI and they think, oh, it's just replacing people, it's just for cost cutting, it's gonna result in a poor experience across the board, and that's not the goal. So how can you guard against that with AI handling more elements of the customer interaction, customer support, customer experience? What happens to the human side of service? Because people want that. They don't want to feel like they're interacting with a bot.
Well, yeah. So I think when a customer wants to interact with a person, you need to make it easy to do that. I think you need to inject the human elements where they can really stand out and make your business look top notch. And then I think, looking at it from the employee's lens or the person's lens, I think you just have to understand that the world's evolving and what you're going to do in your daily job is going to change. That's not unique to any one position. I think we're all having to reinvent our job descriptions a little bit with the advent of AI. So at the end of the day, you're still doing this, you're still trying to produce the same outcome in your job, but you now have a different tool set. So I just think if you're open to, being okay with the fact that like you're not going to come in every day and do your job exactly the way you did before, it's going to look a little bit different, you're still going to be wildly successful. So
yeah, so really at the end of the day, AI is attempting to make your business faster, smarter, more personal, but in order to enhance relationships, not replace the relationships. We want to make sure that we continue to handle our customers' experience very well. AI can help us to do that by combining good technology and really genuine human care.
Yep. Well, it's been a great conversation, Clay. AI could be talked about for days in and days out, and I wish we had more time, but that's all the time we have for today. So thank you for joining us on the Business Blueprint. And remember, the world of AI is changing fast. So keep learning, stay curious, and we will see you next time.